got a very special guest joining me to kick off today's show. He's a man that holds a 7-0 record with 7 KOs. He's one of the top up-and-coming prospects in all of Australian boxing, as he's currently the Australian light heavyweight champion. He has a 7-0 record, and that's Kirra Ruston. Kirra, appreciate you taking time to come on today, man.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, first things first, I just have to ask about this because you turned pro a little bit over a year ago now. In 13 months, you've already accomplished 7 fights, all by 7 KOs. You're already the Australian light heavyweight champion. It's been keeping you very active. Take us through just what the first, year, a little bit over a year has been like in your professional career.
Yeah, I'm stoked to have so many fights in my first year, and I've been flying with colours lately. It's been a bit of a dream come through because I think initially all I wanted was to stay active and get as many fights as possible. I set a little goal of getting 10 fights, and I'm almost there. And yeah, it's been going pretty well so far. But I've got my amateur career to thank for that. And yeah, I think it's definitely helped me get to where I am now in the pros and get those stoppage wins.
All right, so you talked about the 10-fight goal you have set for yourself. What exactly does that entail? Do you just want to get to 10 fights until you're ready to really start competing for bigger titles, or what exactly is that 10-fight goal for yourself?
Yeah, I think I heard early on that's, I guess, when you can start to take serious fights. Obviously, you need to develop a little bit more in the pros. It is a little bit different, and to get the rounds out, that's what I'm trying to do at the moment. And yeah, I just set 10 as that goal to be able to stay active, develop, and to break into those contending for titles and eventually to make the top 10 and to challenge for world titles.
All right. Well, I want to ask a couple of things before we start going through your career, but overall, I have to ask you this question. You look at your first 13 months as a professional. What would you say has been your favorite fight or your favorite moment from your pro career so far?
Oh, that's a tough one because I feel like I've had a lot of favorite moments, but the debut definitely kicked it all off. It probably couldn't have gone better for me. The prep leading into that was awesome because it was almost like starting all over again because I'd been amateur for about 11 years and then making it to my professional debut just kind of restarted that motivation, that drive again, having something new. And then the way it finished in the first round, like I landed a lovely body shot, a lovely headshot that rocked him, and it couldn't have gone better. I think that debut was the start of this crazy momentum that I've been on.
Absolutely. Well, I want people to get to know you because, as I talked about now, you are one of, and obviously in terms of Australia, you're one of the top prospects. But even if we're going to look at the whole light heavyweight division overall, I think internationally, regardless of what country we're looking at, you are one of the most intriguing prospects there. So I want people to get to know you and your story to this point. So to begin with, growing up out there in Australia, obviously boxing is pretty big. It's growing especially. But what got you into boxing? Why did you decide to go in there and pursue boxing?
I was always like a team sport kid. Thanks to my mum, she put me in lots of sports as a kid growing up. So I feel like I started to pick things up quite naturally just from having a multi-sport background. But it wasn't until I wanted to test myself individually. I think it was with judo. It was my first combat sport. I loved that. Wanted a little bit more contact because I was enjoying the grappling, the throwing. Went to mixed martial arts, and then I was a bit overwhelmed with so many sports involved. There's so much going on. Like sparring felt like crazy. There's kicks, there's punches, there's a lot to deal with, and I enjoyed the training. I loved it, but I thought that I'd focus or hone my skills in on one of the sports first before maybe coming back. And I chose boxing and never turned back. I just fell in love with the sport from I think that was at 14 years of age, and then continued on from there.
You just said maybe come back. I know you just said you're all in on boxing at this point in time, but is there a day sometime in the future that you would, I know we see a lot of crossover sports happening, especially in this era today. Is there a chance you would ever do a crossover to do some form of MMA or even go kickboxing or, any other form of combat sport? Would it ever entertain you?
I mean, like I'm open to it. Like I said, I loved the training.
Mm.
It was really hard work, and yeah, I respect all the sports, all the combat disciplines sports like that. I could definitely see myself crossing over, but I want to try and take over the boxing first. I feel like it is a bit harder as well for someone like boxers crossing over into mixed martial arts or
Yeah.
kickboxing as it is the other way around, because we don't train kicks, grappling at all really in the sport. So that could be a big challenge, and those are the things that excite me too. So you never know.
So if that were to happen, would it be something where the money would have to be right, and also on the same time you would want to make sure that you're in a position where you've already accomplished almost everything? So you're saying probably 35 years old of age or older, probably you could maybe entertain it.
Yeah, exactly. Like at the moment, I'm at the growing stage, developing stage. I'm trying to get my name out there as much as possible, and I don't feel like I would bring a lot to the sport right now if I try to cross over. And I
Right.
don't know if it would, if it would make sense right now, but never say never.
In terms of the popularity in Australia right now, obviously you can kind of look at it from just you experience it, you know what it's like. And I know there's a lot of big UFC events that constantly go down over there. I feel like the overall love for MMA might even be a little bit larger, about equal boxing. What would you say? Do you feel like the love in Australia is more so geared towards MMA or towards boxing today?
I feel like it's MMA is really big in Australia, and it's still growing too.
Right.
Because I'm around the boxing a lot more, I'm obviously noticing that. Like, and boxing is growing too. We've got so much talent, but I believe for the talent we have, we don't have the as big of an audience as it should be, in my
Right.
opinion. Whereas, UFC, a lot of general fans know UFC fighters, whereas we've got some world champions or ex world champions in Australia that no one's even heard of, and I feel like that needs to be they need to be household names in Australia.
If you were the guy, that's calling the shots, that's helping organize Australian boxing overall right now, and you said, okay, here's what needs to be changed or needs to be bettered in or whatever it might be to make boxing bigger in Australia, to make the right promotional, all those different aspects that are lacking, you would say, what would you do? What does Australian boxing as a whole need to do to improve the sport?
Um, I feel like a lot of it comes down to the media, and it's just getting it out in people's faces.
Mm,
Um, I would say the problem, it's not really a problem, but Australia, we are quite an athletic country, and we do excel in a lot of sports. So
right.
there is a lot of competition uh, with, I guess, what sports make the media, make the news, and what gets shown and promoted. So I feel like even though we've got unbelievable talent in boxing, there's also so many other sports that are competing for that place on the news, and that gets exposed a little bit more.
Okay. I also want to talk about the future of Australian boxing because obviously, there's this whole era coming on, but right now you look at guys that are prospects right now. There's a lot of great ones. Yourself obviously is very firmly in that discussion right there. Max McIntyre's in the list right there. Tim Wan is obviously in that list. And I could list multiple other names, but you look at the future of Australian boxing. How bright is the future?
Oh, the future is bright, and I think you're obviously seeing that with the people at the top right now from Australia, but then obviously, like you said, there's a lot of prospects coming through, and all the way down to grassroots. I'm seeing some amateurs that are just unbelievable at the moment, and I think a lot of people are waiting for them to make their transition over to the pros too. So from top to bottom, I think it's a really exciting time for boxing and boxing in Australia, especially.
All right. Well, let's hop into your career now because, as you said, you're kind of bouncing around these different sports. You end up locking in on boxing, becoming the sport. But I have to ask you the follow up question to that, and that's when you made that commitment to boxing. When did you start to realize though, that what I could be a professional in this sport? This isn't something I'm just going to do for fun. I legitimately have a future in it. When did that click for yourself?
I think I've had moments of that, and while I've been an amateur, I've tried to stay in the amateur mindset and focused on getting as many fights as possible, because I've always looked at that as like an apprenticeship. But the
Okay.
pros did excite me always. I would always sit down and watch professional fights over amateur fights as a kid because they're just exciting. You're like anyone, they want to see the highlights, they want to see the knockouts, and that was what excited me and motivated me. But I'd say some of the moments as an amateur, knowing or feeling like I would do well in the pros, was when I really got tested. When I was up against more experienced opponents, tough opponents, like really strong, powerful opponents, and I
Mm.
could hold my own in there, and give it back a little bit too. I did quite well as an athlete, as an amateur, sorry, early on, and took a couple of losses. It took me a while to get over the losses, but coming back from every loss that I've had, I've improved so much more, and I started to really, I don't know, get addicted to that feeling of improving. And I guess it was through those challenges that I felt like I would do well in the pros. Also, might add that I guess it's not super common for amateurs to get a lot of stoppages, and that was something that I was doing throughout my amateur career. I think I had a crazy stat. I heard that one in every three of my fights ended in a stoppage, and I've had about 70 fights, so
Mm.
on not a lot of losses. So yeah, they're all good signs to turning professional.
So I want to also ask about this aspect because when it comes to amateur ranks, you started boxing a little bit later. Some guys, will start when they're much younger and progress at that point. You obviously started around 14, 15 years old. And like you said, you had almost 11 years in the amateur
Yeah.
ranks. Some guys do that. Obviously, you're not the only person that's done that. Some guys get in and out amateurs quickly. Some guys spend a few years, they go pro at 18. So there's so many different options. For yourself, you chose to pursue the amateur route for an extended period of time, up and through your 20s for a lot of it. Why is the choice you made? Why did you want to be a part of amateurs for so long?
I believe that I was in the amateurs for so long because I didn't take to the sport straight away. I won quite a lot of fights, but I didn't make that national team until I turned 21, I believe. I actually had a year away from the sport because I kept falling short, like in the semis or the finals. And in Australia, there weren't really any other opportunities to compete internationally. And that was my biggest goal, was to get around the world and to see the different styles of boxing and compete against everyone else internationally. So it wasn't until I was 21 when I came back from boxing, or from having time away from boxing, that I actually made the team for the Olympic qualifiers. And once I got onto the international scene, it was like another spark ignited, and I fell in love with the sport again, and it just
Mhm.
made me want to get more and more international experience. So being on that team meant that I could travel and fight in different countries, explore different countries, but yeah, mainly get that experience from some of the best in the world around the world.
I wanted to ask about that. You take an entire year off of boxing. Obviously, you're in your 20s. That's a time where, like I said, some people have already gone pro. Some guys are different, made the decisions on life, so on and so forth. I want to ask about that year. First and foremost, though, what led to that decision? Why did you say, you know what, I want to take a year off? Was it because you didn't want to be a part of boxing? What led to that decision?
Yeah, there was a few things that added up to it. A lot of it was kind of identity. Like, I started to be known as the boxer. I guess I was going through high school, and I knew that I still enjoyed the sport, but I was questioning a lot why I was doing it sometimes. And I was also, actually, no, that was when I was in university. But that was my kind of identity in high school before I moved on to university. Um, like I said, I wasn't the number one in Australia at the time. I was always getting to the top and just falling short.
Mm.
Um, I spent a lot of time and sacrifices for the sport. Missed lots of, I don't know, holidays and opportunities to make some money. And I was in my last year of my degree studying sports science, and my grades were good, but I wanted them to be a little bit better. So all those factors in, I took the time away to finish my degree at uni, travel a little bit, go on holiday, and make some extra money working. And it was around that time, about a year later, that I really sat down with myself and decided, I want to take boxing seriously and put all my eggs in one basket and
Mm.
give it my best shot and see what happens. And thankfully, I did. I finally won, and that was, I think it was 2019, just before the Tokyo Olympic qualifier, and I won best boxer of the whole tournament too.
Was there at any point during that year off that you were looking at and seriously considering not going back to boxing again?
Yeah, like while I took the time off, I wanted to completely remove boxing from my life and from my mind because I felt like I needed that break. And so at the time, I wasn't thinking about boxing at all. I wasn't watching it. I wasn't even thinking of coming back into the ring
Mm.
because I think that I'd been in the sport long enough and needed that break. So it was refreshing to have that off my mind and to be able to put some energy and prioritize other things that I felt were lacking.
If I would have came and told you at that point in time that, by the year 2025, heading into September 2025, you're going to be sitting in position as the Australian light heavyweight champion, 707 KOs, one of the top prospects, what would your reaction have been?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have seen it at that time, and that would have it really would have surprised me. It still surprises me that I'm here right now because
Mm.
I try not to look too far ahead, and that's I guess what keeps me kind of grounded. But that that would have been a great feeling to hear that yeah something good is on the horizon, and just keep doing what you're doing, and eventually it's all gonna come. I still try and remind myself that.
Now we fast forward, and as you talked about, you end up finally making it to where you get to the Olympic qualifiers. You're also a part of the 2023 IBA World Championships. You have a great run when you return back from boxing. What were those last couple of years of the amateur ranks like for yourself?
Yeah, the final years were great because we were able to travel more than I had done before and compete in those international tournaments in the lead up to the major tournaments. So
Mhm.
it was a great experience to travel to some parts of the world that you I probably wouldn't have picked to go on holiday and see those parts of the world, but also compete against the best in the world in their own individual countries and to get the experience of uh, some of those boxers had been boxing since children and had hundreds of fights. So to come away with that experience was great, and I'll use it every day in training, and it comes out 100% in the ring when I'm fighting too.
All right, so we kind of brushed over it then that your knockout ratio, the way you're performing, that it almost gave you a little bit of clues that you knew you were going to be able to make that pro transition. And so we fast forward then, 2024 comes
Yeah,
around, you end up making that pro jump. Why did you feel like that was the time to say officially, okay, I'm done with the amateurs, I'm ready to go pro?
I thought it was the right time because I felt like I'd done enough in the amateurs. I competed at the highest levels, and I I always had the pros in the back of my head, and the timing just felt right. Um, as I missed out, unfortunately, on the most recent Olympic selections due to an injury in my elbow, I wasn't able to compete at the best of my ability. I still went for it, even though I was on the border of potential surgery, and gave it my best shot, but fell short a little bit in the finals. And that was the time I decided to take the time to recover and get my body back to 100% because that's another thing in the amateurs is you're fighting so frequently it's very difficult to have time for anything else, especially like recovery when you need to always be ready. So I took the time to recover, and um, that was when I got to sit down with a manager from Ace Boxing who ran me through a bit of a plan that he had for me in taking over the Australian boxing scene, and I guess it took off from there.
All right, so you were kind of talking about it before we had the technical issue there, and you were talking about the jump from amateur to pro. they're completely different styles. When you talk about amateurs, 3 rounds, obviously it's more for most people. It's difficult to get the stoppages within 3 rounds, but it's a lot of points, a lot of style, a lot more quicker movement, staying at distance, and those types of things. You made the transition. Obviously, you're 7-0, 7 KOs. It's gone quite well for yourself on paper. But how personally, do you feel like the transition's been easy for yourself? Did it go according to plan, or how's the transition been?
Yeah, I feel like the transition from amateur to pro has been quite easy for myself, but I feel like I've always had a style that suited the pros well. Like I said, I was able to stop opponents within those 3 rounds as an amateur, and it's transitioned quite well into the pros, being able to do the same. Um, I also think that for athletes or like amateurs who have had quite a decorated style, I feel like they don't need to change too much of what they're doing. There are obviously slight changes, but
Mhm.
you you spend all that time and experience in the amateurs, and you don't want to forget any of that. Like you shouldn't have to change completely because that's going to be your foundation that you're building off in a pro.
Absolutely. Now, I want to specifically dive into one fight for yourself. That is when you became the Australian light heavyweight champion. And what's unique about that fight for yourself is that you had fought 11 days after your fourth career fight for that belt. And that was an insane thing. You turn around and in under 2 weeks to go make another fight, go out there and fight Tonga. You end up getting the KO again, become Australian light heavyweight champion. Take us through what those 2 weeks of life were like for yourself.
Yeah, like the 2 weeks leading up to the Australian title fight, just because I had recently fought, it was just about maintenance. So making sure the weight didn't climb up too much. Funny fact, I actually had fought heavyweight. That was the fight before my light heavyweight fight because I had a opponent to pull out, and just to make sure that I could get the fight, we'd well, my management had found someone, but they were a little bit heavier. Softer on the belly though, so I made sure to go for the body shot, and luckily got him out of there first round again as well. But thankfully, it was the first round. There was no damage done, and my body was feeling great. So it was about management, and leading into the Australian title fight, it was um, yeah, you're not gonna gain a lot of fitness from those 2 weeks, having already had the fitness from the training camp. So it was weight management and um, yeah, just prepping. And I'd never had a 10 round fight, so there's actually quite a bit of mental visualization just to visualize those rounds and how it would feel in the later rounds, and pushing through, keeping composure, which yeah, got to give credit to my coaches for making me get in the ring and visualize those 10 rounds because on the night, everything went to plan, and I definitely got to give credit to them. And it felt like I'd been there before and for long.
Absolutely. Well, I want to get into your future plans now because in your first 13 months, you had 7 fights. Obviously, you've been outside of the ring for a couple of months now. When can we see you back in the ring? Is there a certain date you have set that you want to get back in the ring and fight again?
Yeah, look, and it's probably from my last 13 months of fighting. I'm always ready. I'm keeping active in the gym, and I'm ready to go. Ideally, I would have liked to fight next month, but uh, if that's not the case, the month after. So expect to see me back in the ring soon, and as soon as I do find out when the next plan is, I'm gonna make sure I'm putting it up, posting it out there, because I want to get as many eyes on me in the start of my career and make a name for myself.
So, what is the blueprint for yourself? I know in the very beginning, we talked about the 10 fight goal for yourself, but in terms of, really starting to step up fights, really starting to prepare and work your way up to get more titles, both on the international scene out there or in the national scene, domestic scene in Australia, but then ultimately, the world scene. What is the blueprint in terms of how many years, when you plan on getting to that point? Just kind of take us to the blueprint and the game plan for yourself long term.
Yeah, so long term, I try not to focus too much on the long term because it's easy to get ahead of yourself. But there
Right.
is a rough blue plan. Like I said, it was the 10 fights, but from there it's the challenge for belts, regional titles, um, Oceanias, what else was there? Asian light heavyweight titles, and those are going to get me into the top 10 rankings. I want to be top 10 ranked, hopefully within a year's time, and then that's when I can start to really climb and push for the title eliminators and yeah, to compete for those titles.
All right, so you are at light heavyweight today. You are 27 years old. Is that the weight class that you plan on staying at and competing at? Do you ever plan on moving to cruiserweight possibly, or where do you see yourself in that regard?
I am, yeah, currently a light heavyweight. To be honest, I make the weight very easily, so I feel like I could actually drop down into super middle, but I've
Mm,
never had the opportunity to do that. I've spoken to a dietitian, I've had DEXA scans done, and they said it's possible. Um, Otherwise, I'm quite comfortable at light heavyweight, and I know that I probably will get bigger as you do as you age.
mhm.
So yeah, cruiserweight is another opportunity there too. But I'm comfortable at the weight I'm at right now, and making a name for myself there. So I'm happy to compete in this weight and take it as far as possible. But I know, yeah, there's opportunities at other weight divisions for me too. So if it makes sense, I'm open to it.
All right. Well, I have a different fight proposal for yourself, and I had him on the show a little bit ago. He said this is a fight that he'd be looking at as well, and that's Max McIntyre, another one of those top young rising guys. Obviously, very similar weight class. I know he's at 168. You guys can make it there, maybe make it 175 someday. Obviously, that'd be up to you guys and managing teams. But is that a fight that would intrigue you at all?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's a fight that intrigues Australian boxing fans because
Mhm.
it was never me to bring up this fight, but I've had countless messages, other people, and lots of Australian fans talking about that fight. So they're the fights that I want to be in, the ones that excite other people, the ones that people are going to watch too. Because being a fighter, we're going to fight anyone. It does need to make sense. I know that now. Being a pro, it is a bit of a business, but
Mhm.
that fight definitely excites me, and I think that one would do really well. There'd be a lot of Australian boxing fans happy to see that one. So hopefully that is something that gets made in the future.
When do you think that could possibly happen? Would that be post 10 fights? And obviously, you talked about getting that level. Would it be at 175 most likely? So that would have to be when Tom Max moves up to 175? Or what's some of the things you think would have to happen for that fight to make sense, as you talked about?
Um, it For me, I'm happy to do it like tomorrow.
Okay.
But I guess it's more speaking for them. It's whatever needs to make sense on their side. I think they've said that they need some more time to because he's younger than me, and
Right.
to be honest, I'm not sure. We'd have to ask them because I'm ready to go, and it's just about yeah making sure the other side is happy. I'm happy. I'm happy to fight. Like I'm looking at getting as many fights as possible, and yeah, pretty much anyone in the Australian scene. I'm happy. I'm ready to go. But yeah, it's just making. I'm almost speaking for them. It's just making sure that they're happy and ready to go too.
As I was saying, so hypothetically speaking, we obviously don't know exactly what's going to happen. There could be a lot of different things up in the air, but and it's also like you said, kind of on Max's part as well there. But hypothetically, if you were to look at this and give an estimation of when this fight could possibly happen, do you see it a legitimate chance this happens within the next year, 2 years, 3 years, or when would be your guess this fight could possibly come to fruition?
I think this fight should be able to happen in the next year. Honestly, it just depends, I guess, however long they want. But it's a fight that Australia wants to see for sure, and I don't see any other reason than it being able to happen in the next year. Because otherwise, yeah, I'm on a fast climb, and it wouldn't make sense. I would say in the next year when I'm challenging for the top 10 uh, spot in the light heavyweight division. I don't know what he's doing if he needs that extra time to develop, but I think the gap is going to be too wide in over a year's time. So it's
Mhm.
the best time now or within the next year. Otherwise, hopefully it happens, but that ship might sail.
All right. Well, I got one final question for you, Kira, and this is in regards to the question I was like wrapping up every interview with, and that's talking about your legacy. Obviously, you're just starting your pro career and everything, but When the day does come, you put down the gloves, you move on from boxing. What do you want to be remembered for what you have accomplished both inside and outside of the ring?
I think, and it's something that I've learned from the sport, is if you do find a passion, uh, it's to go for it. Really make sure that you try your best, and you'll never regret trying your best, especially if it's a passion and it's a big interest to you. Because there's always going to be things for you to do outside of whatever that is, but I know for a fact, and from having to juggle so much and still compete, to now putting all my eggs in one basket and going for it, that I'm not going to regret it. And I've heard from so many other people their regrets with sport or other passions, and they've settled and they're living great and happy, comfortable lives now. But it's something that I think a lot of people do regret when they have found an interest or a passion and they think, "What if?" I think that's the biggest killer. Don't think, "What if?" Just go for it.
I love that. Well, Kirra, appreciate you for taking time to come on in, man. It's been a blessing and honor having you on the show. And I cannot wait to see what God's got in store for you, man.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course, you're always welcome on, man. God bless.